From giant squid to giant tuna, today we will explore how fishermen around the world harvest the world's most consumed seafood on a massive scale. In 2023, a fisherman in the Sea River, Alaska landed a Chinook salmon weighing 65 pounds. This is a rare catch of recreational fishermen. Commercial fishermen use two main methods to fish salmon, one of which is called purse seining. Fishermen use massive circular nets that trap entire schools in open waters of Alaska's southeastern coast. Can you estimate how much pink salmon this team caught? Over 1.3 million. Besides purse seining in Alaska's Bristol Bay, gill nets are used strategically at river mouths, targeting only mature salmon as they head inland. In 2022, Alaska's salmon fisheries yielded 770 million pounds of salmon, contributing $5.7 billion to the state's economy. Salmon begin their life in freshwater rivers before migrating to the ocean and eventually returning to their birthplace to reproduce. This journey covers up to 900 mi for salmon like ski and poo. Each species has unique migration windows, making timing crucial for fishermen. For example, in Washington's Puget Sound, Sakai run peak from mid-July, while Chinook season generally runs later, around August. Japanese fishermen have landed some of the world's most extraordinary tunic catches, including several massive bluefin ones that weigh over 62 pounds. They are either fresh or frozen at approximately $76 to $152 a pound. At Tokyo's to USU market, a single blue tuna was auctioned for $3.10 million, setting the record for the highest price ever paid for a fish. Every year starting from June to September, these giant fish migrate near Japan, following a warm Pacific current at a speed of around 44 mph. This 1,000 meters migration kicks off the tuna fishing season from August to January. To locate the school of fish, Japanese tuna fishermen use a Sona fish finder that scans the waters around 200 ft from the boat. When the tuna finder responds, fishermen throw the fishing line attached with live bait to target individual fish. This traditional and sustainable fishing method is generally called pole and line, and one of its variations is the single hook handline technique. Once the fish eat and pull the bait, it makes a big noise. This alerts the fishermen to come and reel it in. Bluefin tuna is a very strong and aggressive fish to deal with, so anything can happen. Now it's 492 feet to go, but this unlucky fisherman in Armour, Japan's top tuna fishing brief ch is struggling with his tangled line. The tuna keeps tugging and doesn't let him finish fixing it. Some fishermen use an electric shocker to conquer these aggressive giants. When it's closed, the fishermen then use large hooks to hook the fish's mouth and bleed the gills immediately to preserve the fish's flavor. The average size for a fully mature bluefin tuna is around 135 pounds, roughly the weight of an animal human, so it's not easy to bring it on board if you're all alone. Next, some fishermen will spike to destroy the brain, then they will run a small wire back and forth across the fish's spine to flush it like this to quickly reduce lactic acid, ultimately keeping it fresh for much longer. The whole bleeding, gutting, and delivering process is extremely important because slight damage to the flesh will greatly reduce the price. Some fishermen freeze tuna for the same reason. For Japanese coastal provinces, this freezing and processing line is expensive but worth investing in because tuna contribute significantly to Japan's $14.4 billion fishing industry. In 2023, the bluefin tuna catch quota was set at 10 million for Japanese coastal waters. For larger-scale operations that fish many other types of tuna, purse seining is the go-to method. In this technique, boats use a vast net, sometimes over 6,000 feet long, and encircle entire skulls. Some fishermen even use dye and speedboats to confuse the fish. Once the tuna is inside, the net signs like a drawstring, creating a closed circle. This precise technique is often used in the deep sea waters off the coast of Honu and Hoko. 83% of the total tuna caught worldwide is consumed in this country in various world-famous dishes like sushi and sashimi. This increasing demand has rebuilt towns like Kesan Numa, a key hub for tuna processing and export, which suffered greatly in the 2011 tsunami, but in recent years increased typhoon activity like Typhoon Hashin in 2020 with waves reaching heights of over 30 feet, and Typhoon Shannon in August 2024 has made Japanese tuna fishing one of the most challenging marine occupations in the world. In the cold waters of Maine, a state in the New England region of the U.S., lobster fishermen have caught Lobsters weighing as much as 44 the world's largest lobster on record. Normally those weighing over can bring in over $500 at the market. Commercial fishermen often use baited traps placed along the ocean floor, setting them up in lines called troll lines. Here in Maine, each fisherman is only allowed a maximum of 800 traps. Meanwhile, Massachusetts and New Hampshire have stricter limits to preserve local populations. Those with eggs are breeding females, so fishermen give them a versus-shaped notch on the tail to let others know its gender, then release them back into the ocean to sustain the future lobster population. On average, out of a Th000 eggs, only one typically survives to adulthood during its lifetime, which can reach over 50 years. Lobsters reached full maturity by shedding up to 25 times in their first years. In most areas of the U.S., the lobster's count compass has measured between 3.3 and 5.3, and to be legal to catch, the estimated lobster population off New England's coast reaches around 250 million pounds. One of the most stable populations in the world of that, Maine alone produces around 123 million pounds of lobster each year. And alongside Massachusetts, these two states account for over 85% of America's lobster production. The Maine lobster industry supports more than 10,000 jobs because its lobsters are high-value exports, with more than 83 million shipped to Europe and Asia each year. However, this was not always the case. In the 1800s, lobsters were so abundant and cheap that they were often fed to prisoners in New England. Giant squid is a rare and almost mythical catch hidden in the deep cold waters of the Pacific, but a more common catch of giant squid is the giant Humboldt squid in U.S. waters, particularly of California and Mexico's Baja Peninsula. They can reach up to 118 pounds and often measure over 5.3 feet long, making them a challenging and valuable catch. Giant squid can fetch prices upward of $220,000 due to their rarity and high demand for exotic seafood. Besides giant squid, smaller squid are also a major economic resource for squid fishermen across Japan, South Korea, and the U.S. These fisheries mainly use jigging techniques to catch tons of squid each year. In Japan, flying squid is especially abundant from July through September. Unlike other places, Japanese fishermen often catch them at night under high-powered lights to draw more squid to the surface. Freshness is crucial, so on many vessels, squid a box with ice within minutes of capture to retain their unique texture and flavor. Japan alone imports around 110,000 tons of squid annually to meet local demand, while the U.S. consumes roughly 170 million each year. This makes squid a culinary staple, from sushi bars in Tokyo to seafood joints in San Francisco. Every year, over 60 million pounds of mullet roe are harvested across diverse regions, including the Mediterranean coasts of Italy and the vibrant fishing communities of Taiwan and Japan. It is used to make a covered product known as baga in Taiwan's Tainan Harbor. Advanced farming techniques have boosted annual mullet roe harvests by 20%, reaching over 2 million on average. A single mullet can yield up to 5% of its body weight in roe, meaning a large fish can provide nearly a pound of this prized product. Similarly, Japanese fishermen in the Sado Island Sea process around 3,000 fish daily, contributing approximately 10 million to the global market annually. Meanwhile, Florida's burgeoning market sees annual catches surpassing 1.5 million, driven by increasing domestic and international demand. Once harvested and prepared, mullet roe undergoes a meticulous curing process which significantly influences the pricing of the global $250 million baga industry. The priciest batanga comes from Italy and can fetch up to $200 per pound. Roe sacks are carefully washed to eliminate impurities before being heavily salted. The salting process can last anywhere from a few hours to a full day, depending on the size of the roe. The roe are then pressed by stacking up on each other under heavy weights. After this, they are washed one by one. Next is the drying process, which is done differently in different countries. Japanese and Taiwanese factories employ traditional sun drying techniques, flipping every 2 to 3 hours depending on the sun's intensity, because the roe membrane can be easily broken. Some facilities patch the broken roe with pig and ton membranes. The patching step is probably the most time-consuming in the entire process. This requires at least 5 skilled workers for a batch of 3,000 roe. These facilities process approximately 3 million pounds of roe annually. For the US and European markets export, meanwhile Italian makers hang them up in the shade. This unique treatment gives the final product its firm golden brown texture and characteristic aroma. Once dried, the baga is vacuum sealed and distributed to gourmet markets and fine dining establishments worldwide. In Italy, some of the most popular dishes include classic spaghetti with baga, while in Thailand grilled baga is preferred. Its bold flavor isn't everyone, but those who appreciate it often become lifelong fans. It's easy to see why a harmonious blend of sweetness, savory notes and a creamy texture sets this delicacy apart from other seafood options. Sturgeon, especially beluga, can take nearly 20 years to mature before their roe can be harvested. That's why it can fetch up to $225,000 per pound, making it one of the most expensive foods in the world. At this facility, only 10 to 20% of fish are harvested each year. This is after careful screening using ultrasound technology to ensure top-quality eggs. Once mature, the fish are either antes or euthanized before their roe is surgically removed. This is done by cutting open the fish and delicately removing in the egg sac, a process called stripping. You see, there isn't a drop of blood when cutting because the fish were washed thoroughly beforehand. The firm texture of the eggs is a key marker of quality, with larger eggs fetching larger prices. Some farms use a less invasive method, milking eggs from living sturgeon at 43 degrees Fahrenheit to spare their life and save money. The eggs are then separated from the egg sac by gently rubbing them over a metal grate to remove impurities. About 8 fish are processed a day, and that usually produces around 16 million eggs. If needed blood clots or malformed eggs are carefully picked out using tweezers. This process can take about an hour per batch. At Marshallberg Farms, one of the biggest caviar farms in the U.S., after roof extraction, the eggs are rinsed and immediately salted with fine natural salt. This step is crucial as it not only enhances the flavor but preserves the caviar for retail for up to 3 months. Once prepared, the caviar is packed into airtight tins, graded and shipped all around the world. Caviar is typically graded into 2 main categories: superior and classic. Superior caviar features larger, lighter colored eggs with a firmer texture, priced at around $1,200 a pound, while classic caviar with smaller, darker eggs sells for around $798 a kilogram. Some caviar is aged for up to 3 months, which deepens the flavor while boosting the delicacy's value. While the Caspian Sea is one of the world's most renowned regions for caviar because of their attraction of some of the most popular sturgeon species, the fish are now farmed globally. In 2023, the U.S. imported $19.8 million worth of caviar, with China dominating 70% of the market. However, American farms are also quickly rising, producing over 5,300 pounds of caviar annually, more than double the previous year's output. Salmon roe, also known as ura in Japan, are its biggest consumer and is processed similarly to caviar. The texture is delightful, a satisfying pop when you gently press the eggs against the roof of your mouth, followed by a burst of juicy flavor. Raising and processing these fish is labor-intensive, so though less expensive than caviar, salmon roe still sells for around $100 a pound in the U.S. Salmon roe comes in various sizes, from the tiny 5 pearls of the Sakai salmon to the larger cm size eggs of chum salmon. The eggs have a honey-like consistency and color. For a Japanese culinary experience, try ura sushi. This traditional dish features a strip of nori seaweed wrapped around sushi rice, topped with a generous dollop of salmon roe. Many people prefer salmon roe because while it's not as expensive as caviar, it is packed with nutrients including omega-3 fatty acids and minerals that increase your resistance to UV radiation and combat sun damage. Harvesting herring roe on kelp is a traditional method used to produce commercial herring roe, particularly in regions like Alaska and British Columbia. The unique thing is that herring roe can be eaten immediately right after harvest because it's not actually in the fish. Every spring, fishermen place submerged kelp beds in the ocean where herring is predicted to spawn. The fish lay the eggs on the kelp leaves and the roe-covered kelp is carefully collected. You can even see the first sign of spawning from above, which is the light-colored water. Because herring eggs are white, some other places use different types of plants instead of kelp. The plants are soaked for only 2 to 3 days or until the water starts to clear. Once harvested, the Plants are processed by washing and curing to prepare the roe for market. The roe is immersed in a salty brine solution for up to 24 hours. This technique is prized for its sustainability as it allows herring populations to remain largely intact while producing valuable roe for export, especially to Japan where it's considered a IY called kazano. However, harvesting herring roe this way is not as productive as harvesting the whole fish with a large net. In Kodiak, Alaska alone, over 15,000 tons of herring roe are processed annually. Factories in places like Hoko, Japan handle 4,000 pounds of roe daily for markets in Europe and the US. Roe is often packaged free, fresh or frozen and shipped in vacuum-sealed bags to preserve freshness during transport. Japan remains the largest importer with nearly 90% of Alaska's roof exports headed to Japanese markets where herring roe is a staple for the New Year celebrations. After processing, premium quality kazan no can sell for over $120 a pound, especially when sold in specialty stores or directly to high-end restaurants.